Yo, what's going on YouTube? Jerry Dan Gaming coming back with another Rise of Kingdoms video. And today, in honor of us going into week 4 of this very exciting Grand Prix tournament, we have an exclusive interview with Yomi of 748W. 748W has just won Osiris League Season 8 in the realm of Bestet and now making a very deep run into this Grand Prix tournament. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out. All right, everyone. So I am joined here with Mr. Yomi from Kingdom 2748 of 748W. They have been making quite the run in this current Grand Prix and are Season 8 Osiris League champions in the realm of... What realm is it again, Yomi?
Bestet.
In the realm of Bestet, Season 8 champions, looking to make a deeper run into these Grand Prix. They are in the lower bracket, so one more elimination and they do go home. But before we get into the nitty gritties of that, let us get a quick introduction. So Yomi, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great today. Thanks for having me on Dirty Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you, and I'm very excited. We actually share a little bit of history, Yomi and I am from Kingdom 2975, and as stated, he's at 2748, and we just had a KVK together, a rather exciting one at that too, where our side came out victorious. Tell me, Yomi, if you want to just give a quick introduction, where you're from, the role on your team, and if you want to kind of just jump into talking about your team a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I'm Yomi. I'm based in the US and I've been playing Rise of Kingdoms for about 5 years now. I joined 748W almost exactly a year ago. And before that, I played at Smash Wolves at 2605. A majority of my rock career was spent at Song and Duck in 1302, where I also played multiple OLs, and we did have a few good showings in top 8. As for our team, a majority of our team is based in Vietnam. We have a good chunk, about 11 or 12 players that are actually from Japan, and then a handful from just all over Europe, US. We have a few Koreans as well.
Very cool.
What else?
So you guys are a pretty well spread team. Now, with you guys being, I guess, a little bit more predominantly Vietnamese, is there any is there any troubles that you guys have, or any challenges that you have from communication, or how do you kind of overcome some of those barriers, playing at such a high level of Osiris League?
Right. I think we do be surprised of probably most players. We actually don't really use voice chat in our matches.
Wow.
I know. It was very surprising to me at first as well. Every other team I played for in the past, we use Discord and voice chat to really coordinate everything. But for our team, we really rely on individual skill, really good decision making, and map awareness. We primarily coordinate through markers and all of the new things that they introduced in Ark of Osiris, with being able to put the return, go back, or attack this and whatnot. Those markers are super helpful. Really, it's awareness is what we mainly rely on, and not trying to tell each other what to do, because when there's so many things going on during the match, you have to really be focused, and sometimes that extra noise on voice comms can actually be more distracting than helpful.
For you guys to just really kind of be performing off player skill is really quite the feat. And I think that honestly 2975 can maybe take a little bit of notes from that, especially being in the same realm, and we're kind of we're friends as kingdoms, but I think when it comes down to Osiris League, we're kind of rivals, because I think that our two kingdoms are probably some of the top ones, even though 2975 with the very, very early exit this year, or this season, I should say. But that's really fascinating that you guys don't really do too much on voice comms. So how did the team kind of come to form, and how did you guys get so good in such a short amount of time? Is that just, would you attribute that mainly to purely that kind of individual skill perspective?
Well, there's that. I think mainly we did a really great job at recruiting really highly competitive and skilled players at the start of 2024. So our coach, Viet Ming, he is a former 1B player, and
Mm,
he has a lot of great connections. He knows a lot of really skilled players. Um, and so at the beginning of this year, like right before the standard OL kicked off, he brought on board a bunch of players to 2748. We played some practice matches, we played some, standard arcs, and we saw that wow, our team has a lot of potential. We brought on like these, 10 top Olympia players. I think we had like 15 or something like top 100 Olympia players on the team at the
wow.
start of this year, and even more so now. Like we've brought since then, we've recruited and brought on a lot more like really skilled players. Um, so just like that game sense really elevated us to a good spot in the beginning. And then from there on, it was like, how do we coordinate? How do we learn each other's, patterns, and how do we follow the strategy and whatnot? But like that high level of like individual skill from the beginning,
Hmm.
really helped us boost like from having like a really great start, basically.
Yeah, and then
Um,
it just kind of comes into practice and like you said, kind of getting to know each other, getting to know the cadences, and really really interesting and fascinating. Honestly, that you're going after top Olympia players, like that is something that I would have never even thought of. But you make a good point that players who are in a top 100 for Olympia have to have a pretty good game sense. And for Viet Minh to kind of like make that call and look for those players to recruit is really really fascinating.
yeah, and also everyone on the team, I think they take feedback really well.
Hmm.
Our Viet Minh, he can be really harsh when it comes to like pushing us to improve. So he definitely shows us tough love. But I think everyone has the ability to like take feedback, and even if your DMs blow up from Viet Minh saying, "Hey, why did you do this? Why did you do that?"
Yeah, yeah.
We all take it to heart, and we know like this is to make us better in matches, and like just that subtle improvement with like every match. I think we're getting better, and individuals are getting better. Um, and there's still a lot of room for improvement for us for sure. So we're definitely looking to see uh, better results from here on out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is kind of it is kind of that scenario where you do want to get better each week, especially with, your Grand Prix hopes on the line each week now. And kind of going into the Grand Prix talk, 748W currently has one of the lowest average provisioning scores among the remaining teams. What are your thoughts on the high provisioning strategies that we've been seen from these Chinese server teams? And are you guys trying to adapt that in any way?
Right. I mean, I think it's very impressive that they're able to farm like 7K points
Mm-hmm.
in a Grand Prix match, and also, defend and pressure really well in the building game.
Yeah.
I think this adds a lot of versatility too, because they can pick their mid fights, really well, and basically it's another avenue to victory, right? Like if you can
Mm-hmm.
get 7K in provisions, that's like the same as getting 2 arcs, right?
Yeah.
Um, and mid fights is always it's never a 100%, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're winning, if you're dominating mid, you're potentially losing other buildings. Like you're not just getting 4K points when you pick up the arc.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's really impressive that they can do that. Like teams like 460S, GY 16, 732A, they can, destroy the building game as we've seen against some teams, but still end up with 6K farm points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, I don't think it really changes our strategy. Um, we're not trying to out farm, the Chinese teams that have been potentially been doing this for like the past 2 years. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that's what we want to do. We want to play to our strengths, and then make control the flow of the game to make them adjust to us.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's the way you have to do it. And myself and all the other casters, we talk about pacing and tempo so much, and usually the teams that are setting that tempo and that pace are the ones that are coming out on top. And also too, it is like to the point within the tournament that you kind of do just want to stick to your guns, right? You don't want to really start experimenting. Maybe if you had that extra loss available, that you could probably get a little bit playful with that stuff. But I think at this point in time where everyone is at that's remaining in Grand Prix, I think you kind of want to keep it a little bit relatively safe, so that way you can kind of keep progressing. Which team or match has impressed you guys the most, and why? Whether that's Grand Prix or like in even like a practice match that you've done in like a scrim or something.
Yeah, I think in the matches we've seen so far, 732A has been like the top contender, like the team to beat.
Okay.
Um, the way that they just pretty much outplayed 60GT on all fronts
Mm-hmm.
in that first round, I think that was really impressive. And then in that last game against 466S, they just, it seemed like completely level, like playing ground. The scores were so close, but they topped it off with a 7K farm score and won with like a 1.5K point difference, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the way that they win the game, it's not like they're doing the same thing every time, right? They have some next level insights on the game. They adapt perfectly to the situation, and the way they fight is also like very well coordinated. So yeah, I think 732A is the top, is like the team to beat this Grand Prix.
All right. It'll be interesting to see. So next question I had was what has been the biggest challenge for your team this season? And that could be Osiris, like last Osiris League, or even for this Grand Prix. Or both.
Yeah, I think like the communication. We talked about this a bit earlier. Like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that we're all super international and we don't really use voice chat to communicate with each other. It's like we're able to do that because we're good, but at some points we've seen a lot of misplays, or a few big misplays because we didn't communicate well.
Okay.
Um, for example, in mid, uh, in our game against 93T, there was a huge misplay around not protecting the arc.
Hmm.
And yeah, some of these things was because we didn't communicate well during the game. The assumption was everybody knew that we were supposed to go back and protect the arc, but then a handful of people just like left and didn't. So
Yeah.
no one was like, "Hey, you guys need to not do that and go back and protect the arc." It was people just did what they thought they should be doing, which just was just wrong for that situation. And so that can happen
Absolutely.
other times as well, especially things that you haven't really practiced much, situations you haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
There is a delay when someone has to put down markers or someone has to put down the like go this way thing. There's a delay when you put it down, and there's also a delay when the person notices it. So like some things like that aren't instantaneous when like it would be really beneficial for those things to be, especially like in a mid fight.
Yeah.
So I think that's yeah our biggest our biggest challenge.
Yeah.
We don't have a great way around it right now. Like I can't just learn Vietnamese overnight.
Yeah,
You
yeah. If only it were that easy. But I also too I try to remind people while I do these casts, and even if I do a stream on my own channel, that like there's actual people behind these screens. Like y'all make it look so easy, honestly. And like from being a player who has been on a few Osiris League teams and we made some like decent runs, and just someone who's like a big arc advocate, I've always loved the game mode. Like there's a lot of like just staying composed, like especially when things aren't going your way, and to like really just stay focused and just make sure you're doing all the things that you need to do. And with communication being that massive piece of that, I mean, I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I mean, you guys are season 8 champions for a reason. And I think that those things, it's better to obviously experience those things early on, as opposed to a little bit later. So obviously the ultimate goal is to win Grand Prix, right? I think everyone's in this thing to kind of win it. I think there's maybe a few teams that may have qualified and they're like, oh cool, like we got into this thing. But with being actual Osiris League champions from the international server, I think it's safe to say that you guys want to win this thing outright. You guys have a very tough match coming up next week. For that match and beyond, how far do you guys see yourself going?
I mean, honestly, our goal is to win it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like even beyond that, like the goal is to expose 748. We want to show people that we're a young kingdom, but we're actually very organized, and we have a lot of really skillful players, and we have potential to win future OLs, whether it be like the older realms or the newer realms, like whoever it is, like we want to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of this Grand Prix, it's a learning experience for us. It's a great chance for us to improve and get even better. So we want to win, but at the same time, we want to become the best OL team. So that's why we joined, and that's why we're here, and we're going to prove ourselves in the next match.
Yeah, I think you guys are doing exactly that. And I think Plato even asked me that question before too. Like, what's the importance of teams making deep runs in Osiris League? And when you're a champion on top of, making a deep run in Grand Prix, I think that only draws eyes to yourself. I know if I wasn't in the kingdom that I was in, I would definitely be drawing eyes for me. And I would be looking to have a conversation with someone, because what you guys have been doing has been very impressive. Have a question a little off kilter here, and I'm honestly curious because I think that part of why we're seeing the provision strategy the way that we have is because of the Grand Prix setup, right? There, everyone has even playing field. Do you think that has anything to do with the strategies that we've been seeing on provisions, with everyone having the same accounts? And how do you like Grand Prix versus the regular Osiris League setup where it's your own account?
I guess to the first part of that question, yeah, I think all the gear and having max like gathering gear, which you would never have on a standard account for like 5 marches. I think that's big, and it's very predictable where the gathering nodes are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like very efficient, like if you're solely focusing on gathering, yeah, you can see these 6K, 7K provisioning scores, and that's a lot. So it makes sense. I think it makes sense, and you're also at the price of like perhaps 1 or 2 players per each lane to be able to get another 3K per player. That's big. Like it's hard to say,
Yeah.
will that one player get 3K on building score? It's really hard to say that, but if you can confidently say that person will get 3K from just provisioning the whole game, it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I do prefer the standard Osiris League. I don't want provisioning to be the meta for the future of the game. I think it's not very exciting to win because of provisions. I would prefer there to be like some other, I don't know, other like
the master strategist play to steal the arc, or something along those lines.
Like that, or exactly, or something like that would replace provisioning that involves actually like fighting and not just like looking around the map for these nodes for a few minutes and then waiting another 2 minutes or something like that. Yeah, so I don't really. I hope that doesn't become the meta going forward. I don't think it's possible for that to be the meta, like in a standard league where not everyone has provisioning gear. But I'm sure there's people out there with enough materials or something to fully hook up like 5 marches with provisioning gear.
They're gonna try. I guarantee you, look for a 1E8 to recruit one of those players or have one of those guys, because they before Grand Prix I thought 5K was the most, and then here comes 732A on the first week just saying like, nah, we can do 2,000 more than that. It's 7,000 total. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think the regular Osiris League format is definitely a little bit more exciting just because it kind of it shies away from the provisioning aspect. So like I would like to see if Lilith can maybe implement something within Grand Prix that doesn't lean so heavily on these provisions that we've been seeing. But still kind of keeping it fair, right? Because I think Grand Prix still has something going for it in terms of like this potential esport and like a player like me, where like I can't like in 2975 right now, especially with the recruitment that we had. I would love to be on the team. I think I'm a player of that caliber that can kind of like to your 748's point, where I have the skill set and the game sense to kind of go in and play. I just don't have the account. I simply don't have enough troops, and I probably never will, to be honest. So I think Grand Prix really has something here. But I think to your point, there can be some fine tuning, because I think the farming meta is proving to be relatively powerful, and I also don't want to see it go into to really become meta. So I hope that what you guys are planning can kind of, you know, get rid of that and maybe put that to rest. So as we wrap this up, Yomi, any final words for your teammates, supporters, or your opponents?
Yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to Viet Minh, our coach. He is the smartest guy I know, and I think his favorite like phrase that he says, "I calculated all." I love it when he says that.
that is
he,
pretty powerful. I like that.
I think, especially when I look back at the games that some of the casters cast, it seems like a close game. It seems like we might be trolling or something, or we made bad decisions. But then Viet Minh just goes, "I calculated all." There was no loss ever in this equation here.
I do love that. That's that confidence that you want to see too from your leader. Like there's nothing that'll get you like jacked up to go into that next match just knowing that he's got it all planned out. He's got everything sorted. I really like that.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why we have so much faith in him. And then I want to thank everyone from 748W who's supporting us in the kingdom. Just anyone who's not even playing. I think they're all supporting us, and they give us the strength to do well in games. Huge shout out to Turtle, who invited me to the kingdom a year ago, back when it was just a B seed and there was no R team or OL team. It was just a just a standard BC kingdom, just taking nice KVKs. And then just one final shout out to Pika and Didi from Song. 3-4 years ago, they invited me to the Song 1302 Kingdom, and I think that's where my interest in the game really grew. And I played OL there like exclusively during those 2-3 years, so all of my skill can also be like attributed to them, and they're great tacticians as well. Yeah, and that's all.
Yeah, and if there's one of those legacy teams, Song I think definitely holds some value in at least the OGs of the Rise of Kingdoms community. I think a lot of us can kind of call back on that name and know that there's been many good players come out of Song and 1V, and we can kind of see that all culminating within 748W and the brilliant run that you guys have been having in Grand Prix. Yomi, thank you so much for stopping by and taking the time out to do this interview with me. And as a friend from 2975, I am definitely rooting for you guys. I will try to be as biased as I can on the cast, but I'm definitely rooting for you guys.
Thank you so much, Dirty Dan. It was a pleasure being on.
All right, and that's all we got for you. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and you can see me on the official Rise of Kingdoms channel this week as we go into this week 4 of the Grand Prix playoffs, where we will see 748W taking on 466W, and also on the other side 489 versus 93T, both in the lower bracket in win or go home matches. I will see you there. Love y'all. Take care. Peace.